Well, greetings and salutations, everyone, and welcome back to tonight's second half. Tonight's second half, I have a subscriber submitted encounter. Well, two. She had two encounters in two separate states that are absolutely horrifying. Before we jump into those, a couple links. As you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, and merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. The links to Patreon and PayPal are in the description below, the merch displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman, Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, the links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support this channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It doesn't cost you a cent, guys. Click that like button, it only takes half a second. And please leave a comment. Why? Well, because these things help, and they definitely matter. And now, everyone, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's get on with tonight's second half, shall we? Today's first part of the upload is a subscriber encounter. Actually, her first encounter. My mother, 3 siblings, and I were living in Massachusetts, up in the woodsy part of Northampton. That's pretty much all I know as far as where we were at the time. So I have 2 brothers, 14 and 13, a sister 12, and of course me, 5. And so my mom would leave the eldest to take care of the rest whenever she was gone, whether she was going to the grocery store or work. So on this particular day, she had to go to the grocery store. And she took my second oldest and my sister with her because they kept fighting. And she also needed help, so she left me with my older brother. I was a good kid, so he loved babysitting me. And a little info on my brother. He's an invert. He didn't talk much. Enjoyed being alone, tough, big boy, and very creative, amazing artist. And I was one of the few he actually enjoyed being around and just felt comfortable with, so he took advantage of the fact that it was early, and it was just the 2 of us, and not our annoying siblings. So he decided to go for a walk in the woods. He and I loved nature and animals, so he obviously was like, this'll be fun. Our house at the time was literally surrounded by woods, so we didn't have to go too far. He asked me if I wanted to go for a walk, and I said yes. So we walked through our backyard and straight into the woods, not thinking much of it, like, what could possibly happen? I know, dumb, looking back on it now. He's 14 and I'm 5. Not a good idea, so there we are, enjoying our surroundings. It was so beautiful. I don't know how much time had passed, but I did realize early on that there were no animals in sight. Nothing, not a squirrel or even a damn bird. But I'm little, so I thought that they're sleeping. And every so often I would look up at him and he would give me a forced smile, as if something was wrong, and then all of a sudden he stops and looks around, like if he was looking for something. So I just drifted away from him because I wasn't going to leave until I saw an animal. That was the reason I even wanted to go. So as I walked away, I looked at him to see if he noticed that I had left his side. But he was focused on something ahead of us. I didn't think anything of it. So I turned and kept walking, humming to myself. Then I noticed movement out of the corner of my eye, so I got excited. I turned towards it, and just a few feet away from me, and us, in the bushes, I saw a big black figure. I started to think it was a bear. All I remember seeing was a shiny nose, and just a lot of hair everywhere. I'm 5, I don't know what to make of it. Other than a bear, even though it didn't make any sound. It was quiet, and it kept trying to hide, and it was for such a quick moment because next thing I knew, my brother is dashing towards me, picks me up like a football, and runs like a bat out of hell. I was so confused as to why he reacted that way. He was running so fast that it scared me. We got home so quick he ran inside and shut the door and locked it, and just looked at me like he wanted to cry, dropped to his knees and hugged me so tight, like he never wanted to let go. So I hugged him back, confused, and asked him if he was okay. He nodded and never said anything. He then just distracted me with cartoons and waited for my mom to get home. And that was it. Not exciting, I know. I would love to know what you think and if you have any questions. The second one will be coming soon. That's, of course, if you still want me to share it. Well, I did, and here it is. This is the second encounter. It took place in Florida, Palm Bay to be exact. We moved out there when I was 9 with my mother, older brother 18, sister who was 17. Because our grandmother was sick and my mother wanted to be close to her. So we ended up moving right next door to her. My second oldest stayed with our father back in Massachusetts. The area in Florida where we lived was small, surrounded by a couple of other houses. For some reason, barely any light posts, so it was very dark at night. I remember neighbors would complain about things like their garbage being spread around and loud bangs, but everyone usually chalked it up to being wild animals or kids messing around. It happened to us a few times, too, but no one could do anything about it, other than just get pissed about it. So on this night, I will always remember this because it scared the shit out of me. There was a storm coming, so my mom chose to stay home, just so we would all stay together. It was getting late. We had just finished eating, and she went to go check on my grandmother, just to see if she was okay or needed anything. So as we waited for my mother to get back, because we wanted to watch a movie together before bed, my siblings and I were trying to figure out what we wanted to watch. All of a sudden, the door swings open and she rushes in, shuts and locks the door. We all look at her, like wondering what happened, and she just tells us to be quiet and sit still. My brother gets up and asks what it is, and before she says anything at all, we hear this dragging its nails on the side of the house and growling. My mother reaches out to me and my sister. We run towards her, scared. I shut my eyes and hold on to her, and she whispers to us it's okay. It's just an animal. It'll be gone soon. Just be quiet. My brother this whole time was just standing there, terrified, not knowing what to do. It dragged its nails a few times while growling, and all of a sudden it stops, and we hear thumps on the top of our roof. And that's when I just fucking lose it. I start crying. I was terrified. Not only what I was listening to was scary, but not knowing what it was made it worse for me. Then my brother looked at us and saw pure terror. And at that moment he ran into the kitchen and got a knife and ran outside. He then came back inside a few seconds later and said it's gone. My brother and mother looked at each other but didn't say anything about it. My mom then said a little prayer and proceeded to put a movie to help me go to bed. But I couldn't that whole night. I was just hoping that the thing didn't come back. About a year ago, my brother and I were hanging out, just talking, and I brought up the time that we saw the huge bear, and his face went pale. And he said to me that was no bear, and then proceeded to tell me about the day and also the Florida incident. And then he says to me, I was waiting for the day you asked me about it. He didn't tell me till I got older. All those years he kept it to himself. Who knows what else he knows? Ever since then, I went down a rabbit hole of wanting to know more, and that's when I came across your channel. Since then, I've just felt like my life is a lie. Today's second part of the upload is a subscriber encounter. Good evening, Jeff. I am getting geared up to go on duty and, of course, always listening to your show as I get ready. I'm an armed security contractor for the federal government, and one of my partners is also a prior military vet who served as an intelligence officer. And although we were both in the Navy, worked together for Homeland Security, and now as contractors, he only recently decided to tell me about an encounter he had several years ago. He's a man of few words, and will listen to your show with me sometimes without saying a word. A few months ago, after listening, he said quietly, "Why are white men seeing these things now?" He's Native American and explained that the tribes don't share most of their stories. A couple of weeks later, after another show, he slowly began to tell me his story. After he had finished his military service, he and his cousin were driving through tribal land and saw a deer on the side of the road. It was late and dark, but what caught his attention was the antler rack. He said it was massive, and as he looked at it, it began to stand on two legs and turned to watch them. He says he and his cousin uttered some profanities and sped till they reached the gas station. He told the cashier that he had seen something, and the cashier asked him to describe it. When he did, the cashier told him he had seen the devil. I'll need to ask him what else he was told about it, and where exactly this took place. I'm not sure how he'll feel about me sharing his story, but I'll ask him for more details. I share my indigenous Japanese stories with him as well, and that is often how we pass our shift. If he is willing to give more details and allows me to share his stories, I most certainly will. Thank you for your work on this channel, and I will continue to listen while I am gearing up. Your encounters really do help me get ready for duty. Well, thank you for your continued service and protecting this great country. And yes, I would definitely love to hear more of his encounters or stories, and some of yours if you're willing to share some traditional Japanese tales. I'd love that. Today's third part of the upload. Travis County, Texas. Me and a friend were out at Old Ferry Road near Paleface Park. My buddy, who is still my best friend, saw something big and hairy, trotting along on two legs, crossing the road ahead of us. We were parked on the side of the road. He instantly locked both doors. I saw the object from behind, moving through the brush. This object was about 75 yards ahead of us at dusk. This scared us so bad that we went straight home. We talked to Travis County Sheriff several days later, and he reported seeing a bear. What we saw was not a bear. It was running on two legs. Today's fourth encounter, Rusk County, Texas. I was duck hunting in waders at Lake Cherokee. After hunting that day, I was exiting the water onto the shore and looked to my right about 200 to 300 yards. I had a creepy feeling that I was not alone. I thought to myself that it was just a big tree stump, but it moved. I saw a large creature that was fairly tall and dark, and it looked at me. It appeared to be hairy. I could clearly make out that it was not another hunter. It had hair on it, kind of long and dark. We looked at each other for what must have been 20 minutes. I think it had been looking at me before I noticed it. I couldn't make out any facial features. Finally, what I saw turned and started walking away from me. I stood there watching it walk along the banks of the lake. After it was pretty far away, I headed back to my truck. At the back of Lake Cherokee, where I was hunting, there were no houses or structures back then, back in 1980. I haven't been there in over 15 years. I didn't hunt at that location for quite some time. When I did, I took someone else with me. It really spooked me. I have never gone on record with this for fear of being labeled a nut. Today's fifth part of the upload. Police blotter, werewolf or Dogman reports from eastern Brazil 2008 to 2013. There was a rash of werewolf sightings and encounters reported to local jurisdictions throughout eastern Brazil during 2008 and 2013. During the year 2009, residents of Kanhotino, Pernambuco, had their affected routines. Children hardly left their house at night. Adults locked the doors after 2,200 hours. And those who risked breaking this behavior were afraid they are attacked by the alleged werewolf who would be prowling the city. According to the animal population, as this would plague the city in 2001 and 2009, the animal would be back howling and attacking animals at night. There were several reports of people who had seen the monster, or that were aware of their presence in Kanhotino. One of the reports that increased the fear at the time was after the attack in a place where the farmer, Maria do Carmo Soros, 57, assured to have seen the werewolf eating the dogs from this home. I was watching television when I got up to go turn off the kitchen light, when I saw a strange thing in the gap of the door. I exhaled and saw a large animal, all furry with big ears and all black. He was eating one of my dogs, tells the farmer. She was alone and wept with fear. The other day found 3 dead dogs. The pieces of them were around the yard. I have never in my life seen a dog being killed like that. I could only find 3 legs and the head of the dogs. The rest it must have swallowed, reminded her, terrified. In Eliza Holland neighborhood, close to the city cemetery, the reports are even more frightening. A watchman of a school who asked not to be identified. He said he came to shoot the neck of the werewolf. First, I saw a very strange thing when I was coming to work. It was behind the cemetery. It was like he, the werewolf, turning. The other day I was here in high school when he saw me and came to attack me. He had big teeth and sharp claws. Gave me fear. But I shot it in the neck, and then it ran across the scrub. Some people say that the werewolf could be a girl who lived near the cemetery, and that the transformation would take place in a pen that is behind her home. To further strengthen this suspicion, neighbors vowed that after the guard shot himself in the creature, the girl would have been treated at the hospital with neck pain. A strange sighting of the creature that locals attribute being a werewolf is scaring the inhabitants of Luz Correro and Paiuai. Many stories are being told, so that the alleged creature is covered with hair, walks on its hind legs, and has an agility out of ordinary. Even the military police was notified about the appearance of the creature and made efforts to try to capture the animal. As in other cases, the suspicion is that some costumed person is hanging around the place. In Gibraros, residents are afraid of a creature that has attacked some animals in the region. According to a witness, the animal would be half man, half dog. 2 police reports were recorded in the town of Tawo, located in the interior of Carrera. According to its residents, a werewolf would be stealing sheep. The fact was attributed to this supernatural creature after a woman had spotted an individual half-man, half-wolf. A 12-year-old also said he had seen a similar figure near his home. Both reports indicate that the creature smells really bad and has a grotesque appearance. Again, police are investigating the possibility of people are working costumed to scare the local population. Stories over a werewolf woman have been told by the people of Guarbera. According to one account, a woman owning a place in the region would have had a pig attacked by the creature. The animal was killed with scratches and had her mutilated neck. The stories say they have seen a disheveled woman walking through the woods, and it's at night that occurs the transformation. Dozens of reports reinforce this myth, changing the habits of residents. Children are no longer going to school unaccompanied. Ladies stopped going to church at night, and even the bars are getting emptied. Today's sixth part of the upload, Vernon Parish, Louisiana. I was 12 years old and my father was stationed at Fort Polk, Louisiana. We were living in a town called Leesville, just outside of the military base. Two friends of mine and I decided one day to explore the woods off of a highway known as Texas Highway. I remember we were deep in the woods and came upon a stream, quite large, about 8 feet in width. From the side of which we approached the stream, we were about 5 feet above the water. And as we approached the stream, the three of us immediately spotted two creatures on the other side of the stream, in a crouching posture position, drinking water from the stream. We froze in amazement of what we were looking at, and at the same time the three of us were trembling with fear, knowing we were so deep in the woods and quite lost. We were looking at two human-like, ape-like figures that were completely covered in darkish brown-gray hair. But the face appeared to be lighter in tone. From the head down, the two creatures had long hair past their shoulders. With a lot of the long grayish hair, the rest of the body was shorter hair. They were staring at us, and we were staring at them. One was an adult, and we could tell it was a female, and the other was childlike, and was of male gender and appearance. They appeared to be just as frightened as we were of them, and after 30 seconds of this encounter, the adult creature turned to the childlike creature and made a motion with its hand, and then they turned around from the stream and started running through the woods. There was never a sound made from either one that we could hear. Needless to say, when they took off running, we did the same in the opposite direction, and didn't stop until we were out of the woods. At the time, we never spoke about the incident to an adult because we weren't supposed to be off on our own exploring the woods. Today's seventh and final encounter. I live in Westmoreland County, PA. For a while, there's been strange occurrences around, but recently was the most real and convincing occurrence that there is a cryptid. Basically, my girlfriend vacationed at a place where there is known to be Seneca tribes, so I didn't know if she brought something back. Anyway, she's over one night, and I live with another friend. Anyway, we take our dog out, and our motion lights aren't triggered, when all of a sudden there's this hissing sound right next to us, and the bushes shake. We rush the dog in, as we have no idea what it could be. This area is prone to raccoon and deer and some coyote. My friend and I go outside with weapons and flashlights, as our dog is partially blind and has a bad leg, so we can't risk him being attacked. Along with that, there is a guy in our rather wooded community that has had a brain issue and tends to wander at night. So, with that in mind, we go outside and we hear a bird call. Remind you, it's 1 a.m. We hear this bird call nonstop. In my mind, I'm thinking I'm being lured by the crazy dude. So we go inside. We look out onto our patio window, only to see a deer out at our fence line. The deer's back legs look mangled. I kid you not. It actually looked like it was walking with its back legs turned backward. There is a deer that roams back there that has a broken leg, but only one. And he's always with the family. Anyway, we see this deer, but when it first looks at us, with the flashlight on its eyes are green. It puts its head down and stares at us, and we shine the light around and back on it, and its eyes are now red, when they go back to green. At that point, I'm convinced it's possibly a shapeshifter. It turns and walks around. It isn't listening to me screaming to leave, so I call it a witch. But I kid you not, it turned its head around and stuck its neck up so freakishly long and stared at me. I actually got spooked. I'm a pretty religious dude who often ghost hunts and goes to creepy abandoned spots. But I kid you not, I kind of heart dropped. So at this point I go and get my silver cross and shine the flashlight on the cross so it can see the cross shining, and it immediately looks away. And I tell it that if it can't cross the fence line because I don't give it permission, it straightens up and walked away and didn't look back. I go back inside. My friend goes to sleep and I go into my bedroom where my girlfriend is already asleep. I lie down next to her. She starts making weird moaning sounds. I wake her up and it turns out she was having sleep paralysis episode. And she had 2 other sleep paralysis episodes during the entire time me and my friend were outside. I wonder if there is a connection with that deer thing. Alright guys, I hope you all enjoyed tonight's second half just as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. I really want to thank you all for your support. If it weren't for you guys, this channel would be absolutely nothing. So thank you. And with that, please stay happy, healthy, and safe. And may the Great Spirit watch over us all. And may He guide us down that path that we call life.